皆さんどうもごきげんよう、クレディニキです。本日も、お一人工学部、復唱する編ということで、スコット・フィッツジェラルドで、グレート・ギャッツビーの方、やっていきたいと思います。よろしくお願いします。ちょっと今日どこまでいけるかわかんないんですけど、ちょっとお試しでやってみようかなと思います。 night. If you get up, I will. Good night, Miss Caraway. See you night. Of course you will, confirmed Daisy. In fact, I think arranged marriage. Come over often Nick and Aristotle of flaying you together. You know, like we are backstage in a wrestling causing pressure in a board on that Saturday. Good night, called Miss Vega from the stairs. I haven't had a word. She's a nice girl, said Tom after a moment. They're under the current country this way. Who oughtn't to? Inquired Daisy coldly. Her family is born on about 7 years old. Besides, Nick's going to look after her, aren't you, Nick? She's going to spend the lots of weekends out here this summer. I think her home influence will be very good for her. Daisy and Tom looked at each other for a moment in silence. Is she from New York? I asked quickly. From River. Our white girlfriend was passed there. Beautiful white. Did you give Nick a little heart to hide on the veranda? Demanded Tom suddenly. Did I? She looked at me. I can't seem to remember, but I think we talked about the Nordic race. Yes, I'm sure we did. It sort of cracked on nerves. First thing you know, don't brave everything you hear, Nick. He advised me. I said right rather hard or nothing at all, and a few minutes later, I got up to go home. They came to the door with me stood by side in a chair for a scare of rides. As I started my border, Daisy promptly called. Wait, I forgot to ask you something that is important. We had you engaged to a girl at West. That's right. Corroborating Tom Guidry, we had you engaged. It's a rival. I'm too poor. But we had it, insisted Daisy, surprising me by opening up again in a flower-like way. We had it from 3 people, so it must be true. Of course, I knew what they were referring to, but I wasn't even vaguely engaged. The fact that gossip had published that friend was one of the reasons I'd come east. You can't stop going with an old friend on account of rumors. And on the other hand, I had no intention of being rumored into marriage. The interest rather touched me, and made them less remotely rich. Nevertheless, I was confused and a little disgusted as I drove away. It seems to me that the thing for Daisy to do was to rush out the house, child in arms, but apparently there was no such intentions in her head. As for Tom, the fact that he had some woman in New York was really less surprising, and that he'd been depressed by a book. Something was making him nibble at the edge of sad ideas. If his childish physical egotism no longer dashed his peremptory heart. Already it was deep summer of loud holes of roofs in the front of the garages, when new red gas pumps started in pools of light. And when I reached my status mistake, I ran the car under its shed, and sat for a while on the abandoned grass roller in the yard. The wind had run off, leaving the light, bright night, with the wings beating the trees, and the persistent organ sound as the floor furrows of the earth were the flags full of life. The silhouette of moving cat wavered across the moonlight, and turning my head to watch, I saw that I was an alarm. 50 feet away, a figure had emerged from the shadow of my neighbor's mansion, and was standing with his hand in his pocket regarding the silver paper of the stars. Something his leisurely movements and the secure position of his feet upon the lawn suggested that it was Mr. Gatsby himself, come out to determine what share was his of our local heavens. I decided to call him in. Miss Baker had mentioned him on dinner that wonderful introduction, but I didn't call him, for I gave a sudden intimation that he was content to be alone. He stretched out his arm towards the dark water in a curious way, and far as I went from him, I could have sworn he was trembling. Involuntarily I glanced seaward, and distinguished nothing except a single green light, minute and far away, that might have been the end of the dark. When I looked once more for Gatsby, he had vanished. I was alone again, in the unquiet darkness. もしかしてお題ってなかった 入ってます。入ってました。めっちゃむずくて。めちゃくちゃ早くて。めっちゃ早いし、めっちゃむずくて。チャプター1でこんなむずいと思わなかった。もう1個やってみようか。1時間はちょっとやってみようか。ものは試しということで、もう1時間やって、もう、ワンチャプターやってみようと思います。めちゃくちゃ早くて、当倍が。Chapter 2 About halfway between West Egg and New York, the Mora Road hastily joins the railroad and runs beside it for a quarter of a mile as they shrink away from a certain desolate area of land. This is the very ashes, a fantastic farm where ashes grow like wheat into ridges and curves and grotesque gardens, where ashes take the forms of houses and chimneys and rising smoke, and finally, with the transcendent effort of men who move dimly and already crumbling through the powdery air. Occasionally, a line of great crests crawls along in the visible track, gives out a ghastly creak, and comes to rest. And immediately the ash-gray men swarm up with leaden speed and stop the impenetrable crowd, which screen their obscure apparition from your sight. But above the great land and the spoils of the bleak dusk which drift endlessly over it, you perceive, after a moment, the eyes of Dr. T.J. Eckelberg. The eyes of Dr. T.J. Eckelberg are blue and gigantic, their irises 1 yard high. They look out of no face, but instead, from a pair of enormous yellow spectacles, which pass over a non-existent nose. Evidently, some wild bag of outbreak set them to pattern his practice in the bottle of queen, and then sank into a tunnel of blindness, or forgot them, and moved away. But his eyes, dimmed a little by many paintless days under sun and rain, brood and on the surrounding dumping ground. The valley of ashes is bounded on one side by a small farm river. When the drawbridge is up to let barges through, the passengers on waiting trains can stare at these dismal scenes for as long as half an hour. These are always a hot day at least a minute. And it was because of this that I first met Tom Buchanan's mistress. The fact that he had one was insisted upon whether even was known. His acquaintances resented the fact that he turned up in popular restaurant with her, and leaving her at table, sauntered about, chatting with hundreds of new. Though I was curious to see her, I had no desire to meet her, but I did. I went up to New York with Tom on the train one afternoon, and when stopped by the ash ships jumped to his feet and, taking hold of my elbow, literally forced me from the car. We're getting off, he insisted. I want you to meet my guard. I think he tanked up a good deal at a luncheon, his determination to have my company bordered on violence. The super serious assumption was that on a Sunday afternoon, I had nothing better to do. I followed him over little whitewashed railroad fence, and I walked back 100 yards along the road and Dr. Eichelbach's persistent stare. The only building in sight was a small block of yellow brick sitting on the edge of the wasteland, a sort of compact main street ministering to it, and contiguous to absolutely nothing. Bombed the 3 shops in contained wasteland, and another was an all-night restaurant, approached for a trail of ushers. The third was garage, repairs, George B. Burson, Carl's Bar and Salt. And I followed Tom inside. The interior was unprosperous and bare. The only cup visible was a dust-covered leg of a flower which crouched into a dim corner. It occurred to me that this shadow of a garage must be a blind, and some sumptuous Mormon apartments were concealed overhead. When the proprietor himself appeared in the door of an office, wiping his hands on a piece of waste, he was a blond, spirited man, anemic and faintly handsome, with sunlight, a damp gleam of hope sprang into his light blue eyes. "Hello, Wilson, old man," said Tom, slapping him jovially on the shoulder. "How's business?" "I can't complain," answered Wilson unconvincingly. "When are you going to start the car?" "Next week. I've got mine working on that." Works pretty strong on me. No, he doesn't, said Tom coldly. And if you feel that way about it, maybe I've been selling somebody else after all. I don't mean that. Explained Wilson quickly. I just mean I spoke the clown glanced impatiently around the garage. Then I heard footsteps on the stairs, and in a moment, the thick-set figure of a woman blocked out the light from the office door. She was in the middle sizes and faintly stout, but she carried herself fresh sensuously on some account. Her face, the dress of dark blue craft sheen, contained no facet of grain or beauty, but there was immediately perceptible vitality about her, as if the nerves of the body were continually smoldering. She smiled slowly, and walking through her husband as if he were a ghost, shook his hand with Tom, looking him flush in the eye. Then she bit her lips, and without turning around, spoke to her husband in a soft, coarse voice. Get some chairs, why don't you? So somebody can sit down. Oh, sure, agreed Wilson hurriedly, and went toward the office, mingling immediately with the cemented color of the wall. A white ashen dust veiled his dark suit, and his pale hair as it veiled everything in the vicinity, except his wife, who moved close to Tom. I will see you, said Tom intently. Get on the next train. All right. I'll meet you by the newsstand on the lower level. She nodded and moved away from me just as George Wilson emerged with 2 chairs from his office door. We waited for her down the road and out of sight. It was a few days before the 1st of July, and Gray's scrawny Italian child was sitting torpedoes in a row along the railway track. Terrible braces, they said Tom, exchanging a frown with Dr. Eckerberg. Awful. It does a good getaway. Doesn't her husband object? Wilson? He thinks she goes to their sister in New York. He's so dumb he doesn't know his rabbi. So Tom Buchanan and his girl and I went up together to New York, or not quite together, for Miss Wilson's secretary in another car. Tom deferred that much to the sensibility of those East Eggers who might be on the train. She changed her dress to brown figured muslin, which stretched tight over her rather wide hips, so helped her to the platform in New York. At the newsstand, she bought a copy of Tongue Tattle in the moving picture magazine. In the station drugstore, some cold cream and a small flask of perfume. Upstairs in the solemn echoing drive, she let 4 taxicabs drive away before she selected a new one, lavender color, with grey upholstery. In this, we stepped out from the mass of the station into the glowing sunshine. But immediately she turned sharply from the window and leaning forward, tapped on the front glass. I want to get warm the dogs, she said earnestly. I want to get warm the apartment. They're nice to have a dog. We backed up the grey old man who bore a sad resemblance to John D. Rockefeller. In the basket swung from his neck covered a dozen very recent puppies of a determinate breed. What kind are they? Asked Mrs. Wilson eagerly as he came to the taxi window. All kinds. What kind do you want, lady? I'd like to get one of those police dogs. I don't suppose you got that kind. The man peered doubtfully into the basket, plunged his hand and drew up, wriggling by the rocky neck. Not exactly a police dog, said the man with disappointment in his voice. It's more regular. He passed his hand over the brown wash rag of her back. Look at that. Some cold. That's a dog that'll never bother you with catching cold. I think it's cute, said Mrs. Wilson enthusiastically. How much is it? That dog? He looked at it admiringly. That dog will cost you $10. The air there. Undoubtedly there was air there concealed in it somewhere, though its feet were startling white. Changed hands and settled down into Mrs. Wilson's lap, where she followed the weatherproof coat with rapture. Is it a boy or girl? She asked delicately. That dog's a boy. It's a bitch, said Tom decisively. Here's your money. Go and buy 10 more dogs with it. We drove over the Fifth Avenue, so warm and soft, almost pastoral on the summer Sunday afternoon that I wouldn't have been surprised to see a great flock of white sheep turn the corner. Hold on, I said. I have to leave you here. No, you don't, interposed Tom quickly. Mother will be hardly here to come to apartment. Won't you, Mother? Come on, she urged. I'll telephone my sister Catherine. She said it'll be very beautiful by people who ought to know. Well, I'd like to, but... We went on, cutting back again that over the park toward the West Hundreds. At 158th Street, the cab stopped at the one slice in the long white cake of apartment houses, throwing a regal homecoming glance around the neighborhood. Mrs. Wilson gathered up the dog and other purchases and went heartily in. I'm going to have some keys come up, she announced as we rose in the elevator, and of course I got to call up my sister too. The apartment was on the top floor, a small living room, a small dining room, a small bedroom, and a bath. The living room was crowded to the doors with the self-tapestry furniture entirely too large for it, so that the move about was to stumble continually over scenes of ladies swinging in the garden of outside. The only picture was an overlarge photograph, apparently a hen sitting in a broad rug. Looked at from distance, however, the hen resolved itself a bonnet, and the countenance of a stout old lady beamed down into the room. Several old copies of Tom Tuttle lay on the table together with a copy of Simon called Peter, and some of the small scoundrel magazines of Bradbury. Mrs. Wilson was first content with the dog. A reluctant elevator boy went for a box of straw and some milk, to which he added in his own initiative a tin of large, hard dog biscuits, one of which decomposed apathetically in the sauce of milk all afternoon. Meanwhile, Tom brought out a bottle of whiskey from a locked bureau door. I have been drunk just twice in my life, and the second time was that afternoon, so everything that happened has a dim, hazy trace of it. Although until after 8 o'clock, the apartment was full of Jefferson. Sitting on Tom's lap, Mrs. Wilson called up several people on the telephone. Then there was still cigarettes, and I went to buy some of drugstore on the corner. When I came back, they had disappeared, so I sat down discreetly in the living room and left of Simon called Peter. Either it was terrible stuff of whiskey with total things because it didn't make sense to me. Just as some bottle. After the first drink, Mrs. Wilson and I called each other by our first names. They appeared. Company commenced to arrive at the apartment door. The sister, Catherine, was slender, worldly girl about 30, with a solid sticky bob of red hair and a complexion powdered milky white. Her eyebrows had been plucked and then drawn on again at a more rakish angle. But efforts of nature towards the restoration of the old alignment gave a broad air to her waist. When she moved about, there was an incessant creaking, as the innumerable poetry bracelets jingled up and down upon her arms. She came in with such a proprietary haste, and looked around so possessively at the furniture that I wondered if she lived here. But when I asked her, she laughed immoderately, repeated my question aloud, and told me she lived with a girlfriend out of there. Mr. Mackey was a pale, feminine man from the flat below. He had just shaved from the bright spot of blood on his cheekbone, and he was most respectful in his greeting to everyone in the room. He informed me that he was in the artistic game, and I gathered later that he was a photographer, and had made a diamond arrangement with Mrs. Wilson's mother which hovered like an extra person on the wall. His wife was surreal, languid, handsome, and horrible. She told me with pride that her husband had photographed her 127 times since they had been married. Mrs. Wilson had changed her costume some time before, and I was now attired in the elaborate afternoon dress of cream-colored chiffon, which gave out a continual rustle as she swept about the room. With the influence of the dress, her personality had also undergone a change. The intense vitality that had been so remarkable in the garage was converted into impressive hauteur. Her laughter, her gestures, her assertions became more violently affected moment by moment, and as she expanded, the room grew smaller around her, until she seemed to be revolving on a noisy creaking pivot through the smoky air.
My dear, she told her sister in a high, missing shirt, most of these fellows will cheat you every time. All they think of is money. I had a woman up here last week to look at my feet, and when she gave me the period such as my appendicitis. What was the name of the woman? Asked Mrs. Mackey. Mrs. Everhart. She goes around looking at people's feet in their own homes. I like your dress, remarked Mrs. Mackey. I think it's adorable. Mrs. Wilson rejected the compliment by raising her eyebrow in disdain. It's just a crazy old thing, she said. I just happen on sometimes when I don't care what it looks like. But it looks wonderful on you, if you know what I mean, pursued Miss Mackey. If Chester could only get in the post, I think he'd make something of it. We all looked in silence at Mrs. Wilson, who removed a strand of hair from over her eyes and looked back at us with a brilliant smile. Mr. Mackey regarded her intently with his head on one side, and then moved his hand back and forth slowly in front of his face. I should change the light, he said after a moment. I'd like to bring out the modeling of the features, and I tried to get hold of the back here. I don't think of changing the light, cried Miss Mackey. I think it's, her husband said, shoot. And we all looked at the subject again. Whereupon Tom Buchanan yawned audibly and got to his feet. Your monkeys have drunk, he said. Got some more public sleep. I told that boy about the eyes. Martha raised her eyebrows in despair at the shifters of the lower orders. These people, you have to keep after them all the time. She looked at me, laughed pointlessly. Then she glanced over to the dog, kissed it with ecstasy, and swept into the kitchen, implying that a dozen chairs waited our orders there. I've done some nice things out on Long Island, asserted Mr. Mackey. Tom looked at him blankly. 2 of them we have framed downstairs. 2 what? Demanded Tom. 2 studies. One of them I called Montauk Point, the girls, and the other I called Montauk Point, the sea. The sister Catherine sat down beside me on the couch. Do you live down Long Island too? She inquired. I live at West Egg. Really? I was down there at the party about a month ago at a man named Gatsby. Do you know him? I live next to him. Well, they say he's a nephew or a cousin of Kaiser Wilhelm's. That's where all his money comes from. Really? She nodded. I'm scared of him. I'd hate to have him get anything on me. This absorbing information about my neighbor was interrupted by Mrs. Mackey's pointing suddenly at Catherine. Chester, I think you could do something with her, she broke out. But Mr. Mackey only nodded in a bored way and turned his attention to Tom. I'd like to more work on Long Island if I get the entry. All I ask is that she give me a start. Ask mother, said Tom, breaking into a short shout of laughter as Mrs. Wilson entered the tray. She'll give you a later introduction, won't you, mother? Do what? She asked, startled. You'll give Mackey a later introduction to your husband so he can do some studies of it. His lips moved silently for a moment as he meant it. George B. Wilson of the guest passing policy. Catherine leaned across me with whisper in my ear. Neither of them can stand the person I'm married to. Can't they? Can't stand them. She looked at mother on that time. What I say is, why go on living with them when you stand them? If I was there, I would get a boys and get married to each other right away. Doesn't she like Wilson either? The answer to his was unexpected. It came from Barbara, who had overheard the question and was violent and obscene. You see, cried Catherine tranquilly. She lowered the voice again. It's really his wife that's keeping them apart. She is Catholic, and they don't believe in divorce. He was not a Catholic, and I was a little shocked at the elaborateness of the lie. They got west to live from while the war's over. It'd be more discreet to Europe. Oh, do you like Europe? She exclaimed surprisingly. I just got back from Monte Carlo. Really? Just last year. I went over there with another girl. Stay long? No, we just went to Mount Carmel, but we went by a massage. We had about $1,200 when we started, but we got shipped out of Oregon in 2 days in the private rooms. We had an awful time getting back, I can tell you. God, how I hated that time. The day after the sky bloomed in the window of a moment like the blue honey of the Mediterranean. Then the shrill voice of Mrs. McKee called me back into the room. I almost made a mistake too, she declared vigorously. I almost married that little kid in the years. I knew he was blonde. Everybody kept saying to me, like you, but I haven't my Chester. He'd got me sure. Yes, but listen, said Marissa, nodding her head up and down. At least you didn't marry him. I know I didn't. Well, I'd married him, said Mother ambiguously, and that's the difference between your case and mine. Why didn't you, Mother? Demanded Catherine. Nobody forced you to. Mother considered. I married him because I thought he was a gentleman, she said finally. I thought he knew something about breeding, but he wasn't fit to rake my shoe. You were crazy about him for a while, said Catherine. Crazy about him? Cried Mother incredulously. Who said I was crazy about him? I never was any bit crazy about him than I was about that man there. She pointed suddenly at me, and everyone looked at me accusingly. I tried to show by my expression that I expected no part in the past. The only crazy I was when I was married him. I knew right away I had made a mistake. He borrowed somebody's best suit to get married in, and never told me about it. And the man came after him one day when he was out. Oh, is that your suit? I said. This is the first either of us about it. But I gave to him the later and cried bitter and all afternoon. She really ought to get away from him, resumed Catherine to me. They've been raving about the college for 11 years, and Tom is the first sweetest she ever had. The bottle of whiskey, a second one, was now in constant demand by all present, excepting Catherine, who felt just as good on nothing at all. Tom rang for the janitor and sent a list for celebrate sandwiches, which were complete supper in themselves. I wanted to get out and walk southward towards the South Twilight, but each time I tried to go I became entangled in some wild strident argument which pulled me back, as if with ropes, into my chair. Yet high over the city outlined yellow windows must have contributed their share of human secrecy of the cultural vulture in the darkening streets. And I saw him too, looking up and wondering. I was within and without, simultaneously enchanted and repelled by the inexhaustible variety of life. Mother pulled the chairs close to mine, and suddenly her warm breath poured over me the story of our first meeting with Tom. It was the two little seats facing each other that are always the last one left on the train. I was going up to New York to see my sister and spend the night. He had on a dress suit, patterned leather shoes, and I couldn't keep my eyes off him. But every time he looked at me, I had to pretend to be looking at the advertising over his head. When we came to the station, he was next to me, and his white shirt front pressed against my arm. And so I told him I'd have to call a policeman. But he knew I lied. I was so excited that when I got to a taxi with him, I didn't know I was getting to the subway train. All I kept thinking about over and over was, you can't live forever. You can't live forever. She turned to Mrs. Mackey and the room rang full of artificial laughter. My dear, she cried, I'm going to have you as soon as I'm through with it. I've got to get another one tomorrow. I'm going to make a list of the things I've got to get. Massage and the wave and cute last streets with a touch of spring, and the release with a black silk ball from the grave that lasts all summer. I got to write down the list so I won't forget all the things I got to do. It was 9 o'clock. Almost immediately afterward, I looked at my watch and found his turn. Mr. McHugh was asleep on the chair with his wrist currently in lap, like a photograph of a man of action. Taking out my handkerchief, I wiped from his cheek the remains of the spot of light lather and worried me all the afternoon. The little dog was sitting on the table looking up with blind eyes through the smoke. and from time to time blowing faintly. People disappeared, reappeared, made plans to go somewhere and lost each other, searched for each other, found each other a few feet away. Sometime toward midnight, Tom Buchanan and Mrs. Wilson stood face to face discussing in a passionate voices. Whether Mrs. Wilson had any right to mention Daisy's name. Daisy, 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 shouted Mrs. Wilson. I'll say it whenever I want to. Daisy, making a short, deft movement. Tom Buchanan broke her nose with his open hand. Then the bloody towers on the restaurant floor and women's voices scolding, and high over the confusion the long broken wail of pain. Mr. Mackey awoke from his doors and started in a daze toward the door. But he had gone halfway. He turned around and stared at the steam. His wife and Catherine scolding and concerning as they stumbled here and there among the crowded furniture with the article of aid, and the despairing figure on the couch, breathing fluently, and trying to spread a copy of Tom Tuttle over the tapestry scenes of Versailles. Then Mr. Mackey turned and continued on out the door, taking my hat from the chandelier. I followed. Come to lunch someday, he suggested as he groaned down in the elevator. Where? Anywhere. Keep your hands on the river, snapped the elevator boy. I beg your pardon, said Mr. Mackey with dignity. I didn't know I was touching it. All right, I agreed. I'll be glad to. I was standing beside his bed, and he was sitting up between the sheets, craning his underwear with a great portfolio on his hands. Beauty and the Beast, Loneliness, Old Grocery House, Broken Bridge. Then I was running asleep in the cold lower level of the Pennsylvania station, staring at the morning Tribune, and waiting for the 4 o'clock train. やばいっす。オハ、英語、訳、機動工学隊、ベルニキ、東方ニキ、ニキ、あるいはニキ、海ニキ、ありがとうございます。訳機動工学隊。いやー、ちょっとこれ画面見ながら読むの、やばいな。眼性疲労に次ぐ眼性疲労ですね、これ。まあ、本日は以上ということで、ちょっと試しにやってみました。ありがとうございました。8ビュースということで。ではまた。バイバイバイバイ。アイテムすぐ金曜。それでは。